So I'm going to toss one over to you here, DJ, because I've actually been working on this for myself, for my own company. What kind of email newsletter do I want to have? I'm thinking about, because I'm taking into account all the issues that that are around me and my business. I don't create a ton of content, original stuff, but I'm very active and have opinions on certain things. And I also service a variety of different, sections of, there's a bunch of different services that I provide. So my thought was to create a topic weekly, like do a weekly newsletter, but each week in the month would be something slightly different. So one would be a little more aimed at email marketing, let's say. One would be aimed at web strategy or content marketing. One might just be completely dedicated to hangouts and promotional stuff and things like that going on the blog, so on and so forth. What do you think of that idea? Am I going to confuse people?
Well, it kind of back to Terry's question. I don't think it would confuse people, and people have commented on this, right? You do a great job of setting expectations. So I think as long as you say, and maybe I kind of think about it like the ticker on. I watch a lot of SportsCenter, and actually all the news channels do this now, but it kind of tells you what's coming up, right? So I can almost imagine, like, here's the lead story for today is going to be about email, but don't forget next week's going to be on website design. Next week's going to be on Google Hangouts. Next week's going to be on this, and so people know what to expect. And then the key to that too is don't panic when you don't, your metrics start to go all over the place, because when you set those expectations, again, I'll go back to SportsCenter. If I know there's something coming up about the New York Jets, I'm a New York Giants fan, I could care less about the Jets, so I'll skip over that. And I might not, the equivalent of a newsletter, if it talked about the Jets, I don't care, but I know that next week is going to be about the Giants, I'm going to watch it. Or whatever the case is, and how you relate that to your business. So I think it's a great idea as long as you let people know what to expect and when to get it. And also, you could also have this week is going to be focused on email marketing, but here's some content about web design if you're interested too, or here's a little bit about Google Hangout. And oh, by the way, I'm going to focus on Google Hangout next week, so people know what to get.
Well, I like that. Good job. Thank you. The other neat thing about that more variety approach is that you can start to test and see what people are responding to. So if you find that there's an overwhelming majority of people on your list that that click on your Google Hangout related or Google Plus related links, well then that this is kind of who this is what my audience is all about, and so that's going to help you dictate strategy down the road, and testing and things like that. Then you could start to play around with, well, all right, let me see what if I bury the Google Hangout link all the way towards the bottom? Do they still find it and click on it? And if they do, then you have very, very, focused, targeted audience about Google Hangouts. Or maybe you just create a separate segment and send them special stuff about that. Who knows? Yeah. But the point is that you can at least start to identify some of those things. And I think for me, that's like one of the biggest takeaways for having multiple topics is that you can kind of test and play around. But you're right though, and I love that idea of kind of setting the expectations. There was one other thing I wanted. If you got a few minutes, there was one other thing I wanted to kind of touch on, because I think it dovetails really well into this. The idea of like automated versus more of a handcrafted approach, which is kind of what you're doing. A lot of services out there, they have the blog feed, the RSS feed type feed burner kind of thing, where you plug your blog in, and every time you create a new post, it sends out an email that looks. You can make it look however you want, but the fact is, it's only that kind of an email. You don't have an option to go in there and tweak it each time. I guess where are there major benefits to that versus, or are there any techniques that we can still incorporate a lot of that human element when you're going to decide to go that more automatic route compared to, let's face it takes time, right, to create that by hand?
Yep. So I do a combination of that. I actually use MailChimp right now to do that, and there's a very easy to personalize and humanize, I would say, the content of those RSS feeds. So just today on Social Butterfly Guy, I published a new podcast, and my list at 3. I published the podcast on iTunes at 2:30. The blog post goes live at 2:45. The email goes out at 3 a.m. Kind of on that regular schedule, and it is automated. But I add a little bit of a human touch to it. I mean, you get the same content, essentially the same template every time. But for me, that works because if I'm publishing 2 podcasts a week, that's extra work for me to do that is unnecessary. And really, all I'm using that email for is to get people to click and go and listen to the podcast. It's kind of a nudge, a reminder. And I don't really look at those metrics because the bottom line is if people aren't clicking, it's okay. If people unsubscribe because the content isn't relevant, that's okay. But that's why I then do the Waldo Weekly Was Updates, is original content handwritten by me or hand typed by me every Tuesday. And then the Coach DJ stuff I do, I write Thursday and send out on Friday. I still use a template for both of them in the same format, but that's original content each time. And this probably won't surprise you, but I get higher open rates, clicks, and engagement in general on the stuff I create that is original content. That being said, the other stuff is just sort of reminding people, like top of mind, like, oh yeah, DJ has this podcast, or oh yeah, he wrote, published this blog post, and I which reminds me of this is something I just highlight a little bit. When you be careful not to obsess about your unsubscribes. I did for years. I used to look at the unsubscribes. I still do. It's hard not to. You look and see, especially if you know somebody that unsubscribed. The reality is, at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't want your content, it's okay. It's fine. They're not your audience, and they'll either get it somewhere else or they won't, and that's okay. That just is what it is, and focus on serving your community and the people that care most about the content you're creating, and I think that will keep you a lot more sane and a lot more focused on the content you're creating.
Yeah, totally great point. And again, another reminder that they could be following you somewhere else. So maybe it's not that they don't want your content. Maybe they just don't want it in that inbox, which is totally fine,